Hey guys, pretty excited to let you know that I've teamed up with STL Tones to bring you guys a bunch of mixed presets for their plugin suite, ControlHub. So I've been using ControlHub's tracer to capture a whole bunch of different signal chains, using a lot of my outboard gear, as well as a bunch of different plugin chains that I think sound really good. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I use Tracer to capture these signal chains and how you can use it to capture some of your own. And then I'm going to run you through a bunch of the presets I've made, show you what they sound like and how you can use them to enhance your mixes.
Starfish, I want a pet starfish, so I can put it in my room to feed it bread. I wanna touch starfish, I wanna touch starfish, I wanna touch starfish.
So you get the idea, those tracer presets are making a big difference to this mix. So before we dive into these presets, let me quickly show you how to use Tracer. So for example, let's say we want to capture my Rupert Neve Designs tape emulators, which I do want to do that. So let's do that right now. So I'm just going to load this up onto my Snare here. So I've got Logic's in-out plugin. I've set that to output 8 and input 8. So from my patch bay, I'm sending the signal out to my tape emulators and then back in to input 8. So it just fattens it up. It's pretty cool. So now that I've got that sort of dialed in where I want it, what I need to do is load up the tracer tone. So you can just find that in ControlHub. You click on Tracer, complete signal chain, and then we're going to go locate, and then this pops up. So I want to drag this onto my snare channel. So I'm just going to do this after the song finishes. Just pop that over here, and I can get rid of that STL plugin I loaded up before. Now, because I only want to capture the tape, I'm going to turn off these two plugins beforehand. Then what we need to do is export this file as it runs through the tape emulator. So I'm just going to set my locators from start to finish on this tracer tone. I'm going to change the output of the snare to the stereo out, so there's nothing else on this chain. It's just going completely out. All we're getting is the tape, and then it's getting exported out of Logic. So it's coming into the tape emulators pretty hot. So what I might do is put Logic's gain plugin before our in-out plugin, and then just pull this back a few dB until we've got a nice safe signal coming back in here. Usually you need to try and get your signal so it sits around -4 dBs. And then we need to export this, and because it's hardware, we need to do it in real time. All right, once that's done, let's just turn these plugins off. Let's load up a new instance of STL ControlHub. Let's go to Tracer, complete signal chains, import. Now we're going to grab the trace we just made, and then we're going to hit trace mono. Okay, so now that we've got it saved, let's have a listen to what it sounds like. I reckon we could boost the volume a little bit. Let's compare it to the actual tape. Sounds pretty good. All right, so we can get rid of these plugins, and then we can just put that here. And because we made a change to the preset, what we might do is open up our presets and right click on it and hit save, just so it saves that little volume boost we made. So the nice thing about the tape emulators, especially on snare drums, it rounds out that harsh transient. So the snare was sounding a little spiky, and so this has now like smoothed it out, and I really like the way that sounds. And so because I've just captured that sound, I can load it up as a separate instance on ControlHub straight after the one that I already have, just to add that tape sound.
Starfish.
Okay, so let's have a look at some of these presets and I'll show you what they're doing. So let's have a look at the snare drum. It's called Snare Drum Hype, and it's got the tape emulators, Pultec EQ, and some 1176 compression. So that's a full hardware chain there. And then I've just done a couple little EQ moves in ControlHub just to sort of tidy things up a little bit. So pretty cool. Just add some thickness and a little bit of snap to the top end. So it definitely gives the snare a lot more character than that raw sound. And so a fun little thing to point out as well, in this bottom right hand corner, we have a mix knob. So if any of these presets are kind of close to what you like, or maybe they're a bit too far, you know, might be too bright, you can always dial it back with the mix knob. Even at 50%, that's sounding pretty good. So let's have a quick look at our toms. I made these signal chains called the rack tom reviver and the floor tom reviver, basically because these toms sounded a bit murky and too dark for what I needed. And I'm sure a lot of people have that problem sometimes. The toms just aren't really cutting through the mix. And so this is just adding a lot of excitement and color to the toms. Nice and crisp and punchy, the way I like toms. So one thing that's really great about making these traces is it saves a lot of time. You would normally stack a bunch of plugins, do a bunch of different things to get to this final destination. Whereas if you know what sort of sound you're chasing and you can use these presets to get there a little bit quicker, then you save yourself plenty of time by only having to do this in one plugin. So for example, our room sound here. So I'm going for a really crunchy, mid-rangey room sound here. So I've taken out a lot of the low end, a lot of the high end. I've added a bunch of saturation to it, a bunch of compression, just to get it really dirty and driving in the mids, because the drums don't really need a lot of thumpy low end and airy high end coming from the room sound. We've got a lot of that already in the close mics and the overheads. So what I want from the rooms is to really drive those mids and add a little bit of dirt to the drums really. But this would take a couple of plugins. You know, you need an EQ, something to saturate it with, something to compress it with. And because we've already made that signal chain, we can just load this up, and then if we need to tweak anything in here, we can just do a quick EQ to tidy up if the drums have different resonances or anything like that. You can make a couple of notches and tidy the sound up, and then you're done. So as you can see here, I've done a small little cut around 3.5K just to deal with some cymbal resonance. So you can see this one was a plug-in chain. Up the top here, we've got drum room, crunchy mids, black box HG2, so a bit of saturation with the black box. And then we had our compression with the Slate Digital Custom Opto, which is a really cool compressor. And then a Fab Filter Pro Q3, just shaping the sound. Complete plug-in chain, but it sounds really cool. So let's have a look at this chain that I made for the drum bus. So I've called this drum bus inflator, and we're running through the Rupert Neve tape, our SSL G comp, and then a little bit of SSL fusion as well in there. So there's a bunch going on here. And overall, it makes the drums feel a little bit thicker. That sounds pretty cool, really thickens it up. So you can see I put the limiter on in here. You could always come in and turn this off if you don't want a limiter on it. And then you can play with the mix knob if you feel like it's too much thickness for you. Mix knobs are a great thing. So I'll quickly show you a setting I made for some crunchy distorted electric guitars. So I've called this the Distorted Rhythm Mud Remover. And basically this was a plug-in chain as well. And I had a little bit of the Gorilla Drive from Safari pedals. So really cool plug-in at just adding some saturation. And this just sort of like hype these guitars up a little bit. I only had a tiny bit on there, but it sounded really cool. The SSL 4KE, just channel strip, just cleaning up a little bit of the mids, doing a little bit of compression. The Fab Filter Pro Q3 doing most of the tone shaping. It cleans things up really nicely, lets the vocals through, the guitars sort of just sit in the mix a little bit better as opposed to all that mid-range that's sort of cluttering things up. And if you watch my first video I did on the ControlHub's tracer, I made a mix bus setting in here, and I do have that available, but I've also made a couple of other ones. The one I made before was the gluey, exciting mix bus, but I've also done some aggressive mix bus, so sort of like faster attack and release on the compressor, a little bit more excitement in the top end. And I think there's another one in here using the D comp from Audioscape, which kind of gives it a thicker, more saturated sound.
Starfish, I want a pet starfish, so I can put it in my room to feed it bread.
So a couple of options there for mix buses. And so I've done a couple of chains for vocals as well. A couple of them are using outboard gear and a couple of them are plugins. This one in particular is a plug-in vocal chain. So we have a bit of decapitator, also using the JST gain reduction, and then FabFilter Pro Q3 just to kind of tie it all together.
Starfish, I want a pet starfish. Starfish, I want a pet starfish.
So you can hear that's a pretty sweet vocal chain. And with presets, just don't be afraid to go in and tweak them a little bit, because every voice is different, every sound is different. You might load this up and be like, oh, it doesn't really work, but if you had just gone and just EQ'd it a little bit, you might find it actually works really well. Let's just quickly have a look at a couple of ones. So we've got lead vocal, opto, warmth. So this is a full outboard chain, which was the Rupert Neve tape with the blue silk, which is a little bit warmer sounding, and then our audio escape opto, and then we had some Pultec EQ as well.
Starfish, I want a pet starfish. Starfish, I want a pet starfish.
So you can hear it's still adding presence and a bit of saturation, but it's not overdoing it. It's still got a nice warmth to it. Let's have a listen to the next one, 1176 Bluey. So this one we're running through the tape with the red silk, and then our audio escape 1176 Rev A, and then our Pultec EQ. So this one's going to be a little bit more aggressive.
Starfish, I want a pet starfish. Starfish, I want a pet starfish. Starfish, I want a pet starfish.
So that suits a song like this. It's got a little bit more saturation in the mids, which sounds really cool, helps the vocal cut a little bit more. We also have our megaphone vocal. So this is a classic effect that you're just going to use all the time.
Starfish, I want a pet starfish.
So that's pretty cool.
Starfish, I want a pet starfish.
With the vocal chains, I didn't do anything really crazy with EQ. I was mostly trying to capture like the vibe of the analog compressors and a little bit of saturation with the tape, so you can then shape it with the EQ to match the voice that you're working on. So you can see there's a bunch of presets that I've made already. 1176 drum smash, acoustic guitar warm and present, banjo sparkle if you do a bit of country music. But that's the idea of it, guys, to make your workflow a little bit quicker and easier to dial in a sound. And the great thing about the Trace Exchange is once you load this up and you have a look, there's so much stuff on here that you can just download and use. There's plenty of awesome things that have been traced that you can then add to your mixes. So besides the settings that I'm making and going to upload here, there's already a ton of great stuff on here. So if the whole Trace Exchange thing interests you, make sure you check out STL Tones ControlHub plugin, and you'll be able to use my presets from October 13th. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel and turn on that notification bell. If you want to support this channel, please check out the description link below where you can go to my website and check out my drum sample packs. If you're keen to check out my series on Fix It in the Mix, check out this first video about fixing fizzy electric guitars.